Okay, just picture this for a second. It's 1947. A brand new nation is born. But this isn't just any nation. We're talking about over 300 million people, hundreds of languages, and just countless traditions and beliefs. So the challenge, the epic task, was to create a single rulebook, one constitution, that could unite this incredible, mind-boggling diversity. And that is the story we're diving into today.
So this was really the number one question facing India's founders. And it's not just a political question, right? It's almost an architectural one. How do you design a system that's strong enough to hold everyone together, but at the same time flexible enough to let everyone have their own space to breathe? This is the puzzle we're going to unpack.
All right, so the first major decision for this new country was, what kind of government are we even going to have? The leaders looked all around the world and they basically saw two main models on the menu. This single choice was going to set the course for India's future for, well, forever.
And this slide just breaks down that huge choice so perfectly. On one side, you've got the American presidential system. Think of it like a company where the CEO is a total outsider from the board of directors. If they disagree, boom, gridlock. Nothing gets done. The main goal there is stability. The boss gets a fixed term, no matter what. But on the other side, you have the British parliamentary system, which is what India went with. Here, the boss, the prime minister, has to be part of the team. They have to be a member of parliament. This pretty much guarantees cooperation. The focus isn't on stability, it's on day-to-day accountability to the people's representatives. And this quote really tells you why they made that choice. The framers, especially someone like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, were crystal clear. In a country as diverse as India, the last thing they wanted was a super powerful leader who could turn into a strongman. So, they chose a system that valued constant responsibility over a fixed, rigid stability. They felt it was just a better fit for the soul of India.
Okay, so the type of government is chosen. But now, how do you actually manage a country this massive and this diverse? You know, from the Himalayas all the way down to the Indian Ocean. This is where the real architectural genius of the Constitution starts to shine. Let's look at the blueprint.
The answer was this idea called federalism. Now, don't let that word sound complicated. It's actually a pretty simple idea. Instead of having one single government in Delhi trying to run everything, you just divide the power. Some powers belong to the central government, and some powers belong to the state governments. For India, the main goal was what's called holding together federalism. Basically, using this power-sharing design to stitch together a huge, diverse land into a single nation.
So how'd they actually divide up the powers? Well, they literally made lists, like a to-do list for governing. This table shows you the three main lists in the Constitution. You've got the Union list, which is stuff only the central government in Delhi can deal with. You know, big things like national defense, foreign policy, money. Then there's the state list for things the states manage, like local police and public health. And then there's the concurrent list, a shared list with things like education where both the center and the states can make laws. It's a really clear, organized system designed to keep everyone in their lane. But you might notice the Constitution gives a little bit more power, a slight edge to the central government, and you have to ask why. Well, you have to remember the history. The founders had just lived through the absolute horror of partition, so their number one top priority was making sure this new, fragile nation did not break apart. They felt they needed a strong center to hold the country together, to bring in all those hundreds of princely states, and to kickstart huge economic plans for the entire nation.
So they built this incredible house. But here's the really smart part. They knew the future would be different. They knew new problems would come up and that the house would need some renovations down the line. So they didn't build a stone monument, they built a structure that could actually grow and change with the times.
And this right here is the secret sauce of the Indian Constitution. It's what people call a living document. See, it's not super rigid and almost impossible to change like the US Constitution, but it's also not so flimsy that it can be changed on a whim. The framers found this perfect middle path, this beautiful balance between being stable and being adaptable.
And how do they pull off this balancing act? Well, they created different difficulty levels for changing different parts of the Constitution. For simple, routine stuff like creating a new state, all you need is a simple majority in Parliament. Easy enough. For more important changes to the rules, you need what's called a special majority, which is much tougher to get. And then for the really big-ticket items, the things that change the fundamental power-sharing deal between the center and the states, you need that special majority, plus you need at least half of all the states to agree. It's a really brilliant tiered system.
And the proof is in the pudding, right? Look at this number. Over 105 amendments since 1950. This just goes to show you that the Constitution isn't some dusty old book sitting on a shelf. No. It's a dynamic, breathing document that has constantly been updated to meet the needs of a changing India.
But this power to change the Constitution, it led to a massive, massive question. A dramatic showdown, really, that was nothing less than a battle for the soul of India's democracy. The ultimate question was this: is there any limit to this power? Can Parliament change literally anything it wants?
And what followed was this incredible constitutional tug-of-war that lasted for over 20 years. First, in 1951, the Supreme Court said, yep, Parliament's power is unlimited. Then, plot twist, in 1967, the court completely reversed itself and said, hold on, you cannot touch the fundamental rights of citizens. Those are sacred. Well, Parliament didn't like that, so it fought back, which set the stage for an epic final confrontation in 1973.
And that battle came to a head in what is probably the most important court case in India's entire history, the case of Ananda Parathi case. The Supreme Court assembled its largest ever bench, 13 judges, to settle this question of ultimate power once and for all. I mean, the whole country was watching.
And then the verdict came down, and it was just so elegant and so powerful. The Supreme Court said, yes, Parliament absolutely has the power to amend the Constitution, but, and this is the giant but, it cannot use that power to damage or destroy its basic structure, its fundamental essence, its soul.
So what on earth is this basic structure? Well, it's not actually a list written down anywhere. It's more of a concept, an invisible shield that protects the core pillars of Indian democracy, things you just can't mess with, like the idea that the Constitution is the supreme law, or democracy itself, or federalism, or secularism. The court basically said, look, you can renovate the house, you can repaint it, you can even add a new room, but you are not allowed to knock down the main walls that hold the whole thing up.
So, after this whole journey, from choosing a government to this epic battle for its soul, why does this blueprint, this whole design, actually matter to us today? What's the big takeaway from all this?
I think the most important thing to remember is this. The Indian Constitution is so much more than just a boring law book. It's the story of a nation's promise to itself, a promise of unity in diversity, of power with accountability, of stability with change. Its incredible design, that perfect balance of being strong yet flexible, is what allows it to bend under pressure, to adapt to new challenges, but to never, ever break.
And that brings us to a final thought for you to chew on. This magnificent blueprint was created almost 75 years ago with one main goal: to hold India together. As we look at the India of today and the India of tomorrow, the question for every single one of us is this: what do you think is the biggest challenge, the biggest stress test that this Constitution will have to face in our lifetime?